Hey guys, so welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be ranking all 9 Spider-Man movies in this tier list I made. And I made this tier list, it took 10 minutes. If you want to check it out, it's literally just called Spider-Man movies, including No Way Home tier list maker on tiermaker.com. Now, I'm going to be ranking all 9 because with the arrival of No Way Home, I want to see if my opinions change on any of the Spider-Man and which one's my favorite and which ones I dislike now. I did have very strong opinions on a lot of the movies and a lot of them were controversial, so I want to know if they changed now that I watched No Way Home or after a few years of giving it some time and looking back at it, I might have changed my opinion on it. But yep, I have these 9 movies right here. I'm going to switch the screens just to make it easy for you guys to see what I'm putting down because I don't want it to be just my face and then just a little bit of screen for you guys to see the movies that I'm placing down. So give me 1 second. All right, great. So I moved the camera down. I'm pretty sure it's in a good spot. I'm sure I won't put a lot of movies in the D or C tier for my camera to block it off. So I'm actually recording this again because when I recorded it the first time, I realized I was talking just way too much. When I looked at my actual timer for how long I was recording for, it was at like 45 minutes. So I'm restricting myself to talk about each movie for like a minute and a half, I think, maybe 2 minutes at most, so I can keep it short and concise for you guys. And then when I actually talk about each movie individually for each review, I'll go into a lot more detail, but I'm not going to do that for this because there are 9 movies and this is going to be way too long of a video if I talk way too much. I'm going to start from left to right and I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm going to explain my points on what I like about the movie and what I don't like about the movie, even if it's about the acting, the writing, the dialogue, the suits, the enemies, and just the side characters, pretty much everything. Try and keep it simple for you guys. Let's get started. So first, we're talking about Spider-Man. Now, the original Spider-Man was a nostalgia fest for me. I love this movie. It's a movie I grew up watching when I was younger. It was the first movie I looked on the big screen and I said, I want to be this guy. You know, I want to be this guy with the mask. Of course, not the big screen. I didn't watch it in theaters. I was way too young. Even when I watched it at home, it was a movie that I was like, wow, I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy with the suit, the red and blue suit. It's so iconic to me with the spider symbol in the middle. And I thought he did a great job with the movie. Of course, I watched the movie a few days ago because I wanted to remind myself of the movie. I'm not going based off of my knowledge as an 8-year-old kid. I do think Willem Dafoe was a fantastic actor and a fantastic villain, and it was a very dark take on Spider-Man. I do like how Peter Parker gets his powers and how he's struggling how to use them while struggling how to also maintain a normal life outside of it. And like how he struggles with his family and Uncle Ben and how he decides to deal with it just really shows that he's not Spider-Man just yet. I love how they showed Norman to be the villain and how threatening he was even when he's not wearing the suit, especially in that dining room scene. It was really well done and he's a great actor and the writing and dialogue on that was enough to make anyone scared. I do love how the action and the fighting in this movie do hold up to today's standards. It was really well done and I love how bloody and bruised Spider-Man got in their last fight. Honestly, I thought it was a really great movie. I love how it was establishing a relationship with him and Harry, him and MJ, and after some further thought, I do want to put it on the A ranking because it's definitely not a perfect movie, of course, but it is the first one to kick everything off, and honestly, I think it was a really good movie that I would definitely go out to watch and go out of my way to enjoy. Just to be clear, I do want to say that S means like it's a perfect movie, 100%. I have no issues with it really. A is an amazing movie. B is like a movie that I'll watch, I'll enjoy it. C is a movie that I really don't want to go out of my way to watch, but if it's on, I will definitely watch it. And D is just really just the worst movie ever. Hopefully none of these end up on D. So here is Spider-Man 2, and it's definitely iconic because of how good of a villain the movie has. Alfred Molina as Doc Ock was fantastic in this movie, and I love how Tobey Maguire portrayed Peter in this movie as well, and how they both established a relationship with each other as a professor-student type thing. And I love how in this movie, Peter is also contemplating to throw away the suit because of everything going on in the first movie, and how he's deciding on whether to not live the 2 lives or just live the life of Peter Parker because he wants to set everything straight in his life first with his girlfriend and with his job. I love when this movie Harry is also diving into like the crazier side of things and attacking Peter over and over again because Peter has a loyalty to Spider-Man instead of his own best friend because of his father's death. And I love that scene when Harry actually figures out that it's Peter as Spider-Man, and Peter tells him that there are things bigger than both of them in the situation and he has to stop Doc Ock from destroying the whole city. Of course, Harry's caught off guard because he thinks his best friend was the one who killed his father, when in reality he didn't. And Peter's keeping Norman's promise of not telling Harry what actually happened. I do love this movie a lot as a second movie in the series because he's struggling where to really place himself in life as Spider-Man and Peter Parker. How he's trying to maintain good things with his girlfriend, keep things right at work, and try and stop his best friend from killing him. I love how he held this whole web block where he couldn't become a Spider-Man anymore because he didn't know what he was doing. It was like a midlife crisis, might I say. All in all, it's a really great movie and it shows me and the audience that what it really means to be Spider-Man and how conflicting it is than just put on a mask and be a hero. You got to deal with a lot more stuff in your life, and this movie definitely does a great job of portraying that. I'm going to put this on S tier because everything in the movie was really great, and I do love how Alfred Molina's actual suit wasn't CGI'd, it was puppeteered, and I thought that was complete bonus points because I know it was very difficult for that to happen at the time. So it's definitely going up there. Everything was great about this movie. I really loved it, and there's just no complaints really. Alright, so next I want to talk about Spider-Man 3. This is a very controversial movie because of the whole Venom scene going on, and honestly I don't like it at all. I think it's very cringe. They could have done a lot better portraying Peter to losing his mental with the suit than doing the whole bad boy stuff. I do think this movie though, without that scene and without those parts where it's really cringy with the whole black suit and his whole hair and his whole dancing routine, I'm sure this movie would be really high up there for a lot of people. Just the fact that he's finally reaching that point of just breaking, and he puts on the suit and just does not care anymore about anyone, about his job, about his girlfriend, about his best friend, how everything is actually collapsing around him even more than in Spider-Man 2. It really shows that even the best of us can break. And of course, he reaches a point where he actually hurts Mary Jane and he takes off the suit and puts it on the villain Eddie Brock of the movie. I don't really like how Venom looks in this movie at all. It's just Spider-Man but wearing the black suit, and the eyes were I wasn't a fan of it. I do love Flint as a villain though in this movie, even though he wasn't really a villain. I do love how he's just trying to get back to his daughter the entire time, and they team up to kill Spider-Man because he thinks Spider-Man's gonna kill them first, and how at the end of the movie, after all this time, Spider-Man's trying to hunt Flint down because he killed his uncle, and the truth comes out and Peter forgives him for what he did because he knows it was an accident, and he finally knows what it truly means to be Spider-Man at that time. It was just really sentimental. And I love how Harry actually goes to kill Peter for the first time in the beginning of the movie. He loses his memory and Peter tries to be his best friend again by not telling him anything that happened, but of course Harry figures it out again, and he's doing exactly what his father would have done, striking the heart. And of course he's playing around with Peter by ruining his life with his girlfriend after he said he's going to propose to her, and that's what gets Peter to his breaking point of putting on the suit and just not caring anymore. Of course, it just really hit hard. And at the end where they're all fighting in that last fight scene, when Harry comes in to save him and even sacrifices himself for him, it was a sacrifice that made me tear up and I would cry no matter what. I think James Franco was a fantastic actor for this, and he was the best Harry Osborn that I've ever seen and I'll probably ever need. Honestly, this movie is actually quite good. The action holds up really well. The dialogue and the writing were kind of weak, especially in the middle part of the movie, if you know what I'm talking about. But it really does show how Spider-Man really struggles to be Spider-Man at this point, and he just hates it, and he just kind of gives up on everything at one point until he finally realizes he needs to put the suit back on to protect the one he loves. I'm going to put it for B tier because it's a movie that I will watch again, because I did like how, you know, Harry really goes out of his way to destroy Peter's life and how Peter deals with it by just kind of not caring anymore. But I just don't like the whole bad boy thing. Oh, I just sneezed like 4 times. I'm so sorry if I'm really sniffy right now. So next, we have The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, I know a lot of people don't like these movies because they just don't like the Peter Parker as Andrew Garfield, or the Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker. I think Andrew Garfield is definitely my favorite Spider-Man. I love his Spider-Man, I love his portrayal of it, and I love his acting as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I know a lot of people thought he was way too cool, but I thought he was perfect. People seem to forget that he had a lot of awkward sessions in this first movie, and he was just really antisocial and didn't know what he was doing a lot of the time, especially when he was talking to Gwen. But I do like how he gained more confidence when he put on the suit, and he actually became the Spider-Man that I loved. I don't like the homemade suit that he made. I don't like the homemade suits that were made in the original Spider-Man either, but I do like the suit that he made afterward. I know a lot of people aren't very fond of it, especially the eyes. I do like it a lot. It's a very darker, kind of realistic version of the suit. I love in this movie, Andrew's Peter Parker also goes through a lot of grief and mourning when Uncle Ben passes away, the same way that he did in the original Spider-Man movies. I do like Gwen Stacy as a character, especially like a supporting character for Peter Parker, because she's definitely like his perfect match in this movie. I do like Connors as a villain. I do love the scene where he's chasing him down into the sewers and he has this whole like cobweb connected down the sewers to find where he is. And of course, don't get me started on the scene where he gets shot after they find out that it's actually him, but they let him go. And he still gets shot in the leg. And all the construction workers put their cranes in order to get him to the tower to swing. I thought that was a fantastic scene, a completely amazing scene. I think Andrew Garfield's portrayal of Spider-Man was amazing. I thought he was the most spider-like spider we've seen so far. We've only seen one, of course, but he's definitely like a very good Spider-Man. And honestly, it's a movie that I'll definitely watch over and over again. I definitely want to put it on A. A lot of you are probably going to be like, whoa. I know, it's just my opinion. I really like Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker. Even if the movie has weak dialogue points or weak writing, I do like it a lot, especially the ending when he's still conflicted on whether to tell Gwen to leave him or to tell her the truth. It's definitely a good movie in my book. Now we have The Amazing Spider-Man 2, a movie that is extremely controversial and very disliked by a lot of people. I don't personally hate it. I don't really like it that much either. I still love Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I love his suit in this movie. I love how they made it. I love how they portrayed him. But I think the writing and the dialogue was so weak in this movie. The action was great. The CGI was phenomenal. Elektra was good as a villain. Gwen Stacy was fantastic in this movie as well. But I think Harry Osborn was a really weak point. And the advertising for this movie was really weak. It showed these three big villains to go against Spider-Man. You know, Hobgoblin, it showed Electro, and it showed Rhino. When in reality, it was just Electro. And then Hobgoblin came in at the last second, and Rhino was like the last 10 seconds of the movie. The writing was really weak on this movie, I do want to say that. And I know they were setting up a Sinister Six, but their weak writing in this movie kind of ruined those plans. I do think that Peter's connection with Gwen Stacy was fantastic, and the scene where she died broke me to pieces. I thought it was so emotional. I thought Andrew Garfield did a perfect portrayal of how he would actually react if that happened. I do think Harry Osborn was a weak link in this movie. They should have introduced him in the first movie, to be honest. I know they used the excuse that he wasn't there at the time, but him becoming Hobgoblin didn't really matter to me. Like, I didn't have any sort of connection or sentimental value towards this guy at all. So when he became bad and they were fighting, I was like, oh, they're just fighting, right? I know, I don't really care. And I do love how at the end, though, after Gwen dies, Spider-Man stops being Spider-Man and kind of just lives in grief, and he never shows up again until the end of the movie. I do like that. It was very realistic, but I just don't think the writing in this movie was that good at all, honestly. So again, I thought the fighting and the CGI was amazing, and I thought Gwen and Peter were the best parts of the movie, and that was really it. I'm going to put this movie on C because it was kind of lackluster in a lot of parts, but I do enjoy the movie in some aspects. Nothing against Andrew, of course. He's a fantastic actor, or Emma Stone, or any of the actors actually in general. Just the writing was really weak. Next, we have Spider-Man Homecoming, and I'll be honest, when I watched this movie for the first time, I didn't like it. I didn't like the new MCU Spider-Man at all, and then I watched it like 3 more times, and I love this movie. I think Michael Keaton as Vulture was a fantastic choice. I also think that Tom Holland as Spider-Man was a really great choice because he's just a young kid. I know a lot of people say he wouldn't be anything without Iron Man. Well, yeah, he's still a kid, he's learning his ropes, and this is like a different take of Spider-Man because people are so used to just seeing Spider-Man by himself. They're afraid of change with the new Spider-Man, so they really hate on this movie for no reason. I do like how this movie is really grounded, though, when he's really trying to become a neighborhood-friendly Spider-Man. It's definitely a movie that relates to a lot of kids nowadays, where they're thinking they're doing the right thing, but they're not, or they're too young to be doing something, and the adults kind of just shut them down over and over again. But I do think this movie is really, really good. I do love the suit that he gets. I know it's not homemade because it's a different take of Spider-Man. I didn't like how it wasn't homemade, but I do like it now because I kind of accepted the fact that it's not a regular Spider-Man that we've already seen twice now. This is a different one. This is an MCU one. Do like it a lot. I do love that scene where Michael Keaton's Vulture threatens Peter in the car before taking her to Homecoming. I do like how they portrayed Vulture to not be a monster. He actually had emotions and a family he wanted to take care of because of the events that happened after the original Avengers. I love the pacing of this movie and the introduction to each character that's been shown so far. I didn't like MJ that much. I thought she was trying to be too edgy, too cool at the time, and I didn't really care for her character. And at the end of the movie, of course, when Peter is still trying to save Vulture, even though he's trying to kill him like multiple times, this is really a really good Spider-Man moment for me because that's when he's growing to become Spider-Man, right? I do think Tom Holland was a great choice for this. I do think he's a great Spider-Man. I know a lot of people hate on him for no reason, honestly. I know a lot of people had a lot of dislikes for him. My opinion was definitely one of those. I didn't like him that much, but my opinion has definitely changed over the last 3 Homecoming movies that have come out. I do think the ending of this movie was really well done, and I'll definitely watch this movie over and over again because I just love how they portrayed him and how they portray him to be the guy to do the right thing. But I do like it a lot, and I definitely want to put it on A tier. And I put it on A tier because it's a movie I will watch again. It's not perfect, but I will definitely watch it again, and I'll definitely enjoy it. Now, Far From Home, it's funny because my opinion also changed on this one. Opposite of Homecoming. When I watched Homecoming, I disliked it and I really love it, and now when I watched Far From Home, I loved it, and now I just don't like it that much. I'm not really a big fan of it. It feels more like a Marvel movie than an actual Spider-Man movie, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't feel like Spider-Man was the main character. I felt like it was this character that the MCU brought in. I don't know, it just didn't sit right with me, honestly. I think Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio was a fantastic choice. I do want to say the villains in every Spider-Man movie has been like S tier. Their actors are phenomenal, but I just didn't feel like a Spider-Man movie at the end of the day. I feel like he was just fighting a bunch of drones, not Mysterio, if that makes sense. I also don't like the whole thing with the love triangle with him and MJ, and then MJ with Brad, and this random love humor really triangle with Betty and Ned. It didn't really make much sense. There's a lot of humor in this movie where it shouldn't have been that humorous, I guess. I know they were on a trip and they were like, you know, Europe and everything, but I feel like there should have been more parts where it should have been more serious, especially with the Nick Fury, even though it's not really Nick Fury, of course. But I just didn't really like it. The whole relationship that he's establishing with MJ just isn't something I liked a lot. Again, this movie, she was also trying to be edgy at some parts where I was like, really? You know, I just didn't like it that much. You know, I love the suit that came out of this movie. The red and black was fantastic. I didn't like the spider monkey suit. I felt like it was kind of dumb. You know, the whole world knows who Spider-Man is, and there's a spider monkey in Europe, and no one's like talking about it. You know, it's just kind of let it go, I guess. And just, I don't know, it didn't really, the movie didn't sit right with me that much. I do like the ending of it though, and I do, after watching No Way Home, I do appreciate this movie a lot more. But it's definitely a movie I don't really want to watch that much again. I've already watched it enough times to just establish my opinion on that. And I do like a lot of scenes with Mysterio. I do like how he plays with Peter Parker's mind and creates all these illusions just like we all thought he would. But it wasn't really, like, it didn't sit right with me because they kind of introduced this whole Hydro Man thing for the first time, and then they kind of threw him away with the drones. So there's no certainty that it'll ever come back actually as a villain. I do like though that it shows Tom's Peter actually going through a lot of mourning because of Tony Stark's death from Endgame. Now he's kind of trying to do the right thing by giving the glasses to Mysterio. I think it's not a very Peter thing to do in my opinion, but I know he was mourning and I know he was just trying to like give the role to someone else because he didn't think he was ready to take the role of Tony Stark of the MCU. But the fact that he gave it to him just because he looks like Tony Stark, what? It didn't really sit right with me. And then of course the villains all connected back to Tony Stark. It just didn't feel like a Spider-Man movie. It felt more like, oh, this is Iron Man's problem. Again, this is your fault to fix it. I didn't really like it that much. I do like the action, do like the CGI a bit, but it wasn't just a movie that I will probably watch that much, honestly. So I'm putting in the C tier. I do want to leave No Way Home last. I want to talk about Into the Spider-Verse real quick. Into the Spider-Verse was a 10 out of 10. Fantastic movie. The animation, the characters, the dialogue, the writing, everything about the movie was perfect. I think it was perfect. Just the introduction to everyone from the ending to saying goodbye to everyone. I love the villains. I feel like the villains were also fantastic in the movie, how they all had their own motivation, just like all the good guys have their own motivation and backstory. I love how they introduced each character's backstory and how they mourn for people they've lost. And this movie also shows what it truly meant to be Spider-Man. I do love how the cast was so diverse with everyone from the perfect Spider-Man to the old grumpy I lost everything Spider-Man, to the black and white Spider-Man, to the anime Spider-Man, to the pig Spider-Man, you know, to Spider-Gwen, to Miles. I just love all the characters in this movie and how they all bonded really well. And I thought it was just a fantastic movie from start to end. I thought it was the best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen in a long time. I have no complaints. I think this movie's great. I love Kingpin. I love how they showed his motivation to what he was doing. I love Miles. I love how it showed him mourn for his uncle after his death and how he's trying really hard to maintain a good relationship with his father, even though it's a bit touchy because he's forced to go to the school instead of, you know, spray painting, and how at the end he actually spray paints his own suit. I thought that was amazing. How he beat Kingpin by doing the secret trick that his uncle showed him. It just hits at home every single time. I love this movie. I will put this at S tier. There's nothing more I have to really say for it. I loved every aspect of it. It was so good. I love the spider sense they always had with everything when everything went bad. Honestly, just a great movie to begin with. I don't even know what else to say. It's an S, you know, it's just an S. Now, I want to talk about No Way Home. Now, I haven't put my review out for it that has the spoilers. I am doing it. I've already written out my points that I want to talk about more clearly, but this movie was definitely really good. Now, I've only watched it once and I've watched tons of clips online, of course, already, but I do want to say the first half of the movie was its weakest point. Now, the last half of it was actually amazing. Once all three Spider-Men were introduced to the movie, I thought it was fantastic. All three of them bonding together and talking about their experiences and actually fighting together was fantastic. But the first half of the movie, I do like that it took place right after Far From Home, but it felt really rushed. I do love the introduction of Daredevil. I thought it was fantastic. I love Daredevil and I'm really glad he's going to be in the MCU, but I don't like how fast the scene was and he was never seen again. And then the one scene that he was in, it should have been more serious because we're talking about the legal issues with Spider-Man being charged for all these murders that he did. That was really hyped up in Far From Home, and then all the charges were suddenly dropped because he's such a good lawyer, which he's a fantastic lawyer. He's Daredevil, right? But I feel like it was dropped way too fast, and then the entire dialogue was just kind of happy being funny instead of them talking about how serious the whole situation was. I love how he caught the object flying through the window and he's like, yeah, I'm a really good lawyer. Oh, damn, that was crazy. I feel like the multiverse was actually really confusing with the whole spell thing going on. I know they had to find a way to kind of ruin the spell to create all the villains coming in, but I don't understand why. I just don't understand how it worked, really. I need to watch it again. I know it's a bit convoluted. It's the same thing as happening with Endgame for me, where I love the movie, but the whole time travel stuff was really confusing, and I was like, whoa, you know? Messing with like multiverse stuff and timelines is just really confusing for movies like this, which makes it really hard to place it all the way up there because there's a lot of plot holes at the end of the day. But I do love the relationship this movie establishes with everyone there. Every single character in this movie was fantastic. It really picked up where it lacked in Far From Home and where it was strong in Homecoming for this movie. MJ and Peter were fantastic. She wasn't trying to be edgy. She was worried about Peter. They're worried about each other. They're always looking out for each other the entire time. Ned, I don't even start on Ned. Ned did amazing as well. That's the guy in the chair again, right? All three Peters were fantastic. All the villains were amazing. All of them had their own motivations again. All of them were serious. They were all evil. They were all doing what they thought was right for themselves. And Green Goblin, in my opinion, was the best villain in this movie. He was so dark and confusing and just the best villain the Spider-Man's ever introduced in these lists, if I'm being completely honest here. I love this villain, and he was so dark, and I even had a comparison where I compared him to the Joker, but he was just amazing. I do think the CGI was a bit overbearing at times. You know, it was very obvious a lot of the time that it was just very CGI-like, and it kind of ruined it for me, but not too much to hate the movie, of course. I also felt like the fight scene at the end, they should have had more risk. I feel like Tom Holland's Spider-Man was the only one who got completely messed up by everyone. You know, I feel like, I know Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker got stabbed at the end, but it didn't show anything. He kind of just got back up and was like, all right, I'm fine now, you know. Andrew Garfield wasn't hurt at all. Like, I know Electro had them all like in a lock with his lightning, his electricity, but that was really it. You know, I think they showed little to no blood or really no beatdown on anyone except for Tom Holland. And Tom Holland's acting performance in this movie was fantastic. I talked about it in my spoiler-free review. I think the movie should have been a little bit more darker though, especially when it came to Aunt May's death. I know it was very emotional, but I feel like she should have been impaled or her back would have been broken in half by the glider. I feel like it was kind of just, she got wrecked by the glider and then she got up and then she kind of died. You know, it was really emotional. It was fantastic acting from both of them, but I felt like it was just cut too friendly, to be honest. And I don't like how Peter got shot and completely just forgot about the bullet wound like 30 minutes later. What was that? Okay, I'm not going to go into such detail about it. I'll talk about it in my spoiler review for it. But there were a lot of plot holes and a lot of moments where I was like, this movie could have been better if it did this, of course. But the last half of the movie was amazing. When they're all swinging, when they're all talking and bonding with each other. But this, you know, I don't want to give it such a high tier list review until I've watched it again and I've thought more about it. As of right now, I do think this movie belongs at an A. I do love the fight that he had with Doctor Strange. I do love that he finally became Spider-Man and sacrificed everything he loved and everyone that was around him for the greater good of everything. I feel like he finally became Spider-Man, especially at the end when he made his own suit and he listened to police scanners and he finally became Spider-Man and what he knows what it means to be Spider-Man after exactly what Andrew and Tobey's Spider-Man told him. You know, they told him what it truly means to be Spider-Man, and it's not letting the anger take control of you, it's not letting the status take control of you. This is a life you chose. This life chose you to be Spider-Man. And you have to realize it comes with so much sacrifice. And at the end of the movie, instead of talking to MJ and Ned, he knows they were better off without him, so he's by himself. And it's just like a complete parallel to PS4 Spider-Man. A freaking amazing game I want to talk about. But honestly, the ending for this movie was fantastic. I love all the characters and the dialogue. The acting was phenomenal. I do want to watch it again. I don't know if I want to place it up here or down here. I don't know just yet. I don't want to be completely biased or nostalgic by the fact that all three Spider-Men were in there and their dialogue with each other was like amazing, because of the first half of the movie where it was kind of lackluster, if I'm being honest here. And I'll talk more about that in the spoiler review. So I'll put that on A. I definitely love this movie a lot. And I'm still in the honeymoon phase for it, and I really want to put it up here. You know, I just put it like right here in the middle, if I'm being honest here, if I could. And then when I do my spoiler review for it, I'll let you guys know if I change it. But as of right now, it's somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere right here in the middle between A and S, like an A plus, S minus, if that's alright, you know. But as of right now, that's my opinion for it. So these are my tiers for all 9 Spider-Man movies. If you want to check out the template, I will link it in the description. I made this myself. It took 10 minutes. If you guys want to do it and, want to share your thoughts with me, you could at me on Twitter or something. My Twitter is down there as well. Just share your opinion with me with everything going on. But this is for this is what I have for now, at least, after years of looking at these movies and kind of contemplating it, except for No Way Home, of course. This is what I have so far. I do think my list is fairly solid, and if any of you have any counterpoints to give me in the comments, I will definitely listen to it, and I'll definitely take into account to see if my opinion will change on something, to see if I missed anything or if I'm too biased on something. But yeah, let me know if you agree with this list or if you think I'm a complete idiot. I really appreciate you guys for watching, and I will be doing my spoiler review for Spider-Man No Way Home in the next few days, so keep an eye out on that, and I appreciate you guys for watching. Have a good night.